Looping. It is used to run a block of code again and again until a condition gets failed. We have three types of looping statements: for, while, and do while. Let us see about for first. This is the syntax of for loop. At first we mention the for keyword, then inside the parenthesis we initialize the value first. Let me say int variable I is equal to 0, and then I end it with semicolon. Then I define the condition and I end it with semicolon. Using unary operators or some other equation, I increment the value of I. So until this condition gets fails, it will run this block of code again and again. I have declared a variable I here. Then I mention the keyword for to use for loop. Then inside the parenthesis, first I initialize the value. I say I is equal to 0, and then I end it with semicolon. Then I define the condition I less than 5. So I used post increment operator to increment the variable I. At first, it initializes the value of I equal to 0. Then it checks the condition whether the I less than 5. Here the condition is true, so it will increment the value I. Here we are using post increment operator. So first it uses the value I, then it will increment it. So in the cout statement, I type the message first, current value. So in the cout statement, it will print the current value of 5. This cout statement is inside the block of for loop. So it will run repeatedly until this condition gets fails. So it prints the current value of I 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. When the value of I is 4, it checks the condition I less than 4. So it is true. It increments the value of I. So the value of I will be 5. So at first value of I is 0. So it checks the condition I less than 5. So 0 is less than 5. It is true. And it will increment the value of I. Then it will run the block of code. So it prints the current value 0. Now the current value of I is 1. So it checks the condition, it is true, and it will increment the value of I, and it will run this block of. When the value of I is 4, it checks the condition. So the 4 less than 5 is true. So it will increment the value of I, and it will run this block of code. Now the current value of I is 5. So it will check the condition. This is the flowchart of for loop. At first it starts and it enters the loops. At first it initializes the value, defines the condition, and do increment. At first we say value of I is equal to 0 and we define the condition I less than 5. Then we increment the value of I plus plus. So at first the condition is true. So this block of code will get executed. And again it checks the condition. Now the current value of I is 1. So it increment the value. The condition here is true. So it will execute this block of code. When the value of I is equal to 4, the condition is true. It increment the value and it runs this statement. And again it checks the condition. Now the current value of I is 5. So I less than 5 is false. So the compiler will stop the loop. This is the syntax of while loop. At first we say the keyword while, and inside the parenthesis we define the condition. Inside this block we write the block of code. So it will execute this block of code until this condition gets fails. The difference between while and for loop is, at the for loop, inside this parenthesis itself, we initialize the value, we define the condition, and we increment the value. But in the while loop, only we define the condition. We don't initialize the value and increment the value. Let me initialize a value I equal to 0 outside the loop, and I define the condition I less than 5. So here we are not incrementing any value. So the value of I stays 0. So this condition will true always. So this block of code will get executed again and again. So it will create an error. So we have to increment the value of I inside this block of code. So I increment the value of I inside this block of code. So I type the keyword void inside the parenthesis. I define the condition I less than 5. So here I have initialized the value of I equal to 0. Then I have defined the condition inside this parenthesis. So inside this block of code, I have to do increment the value of I. So at a point of time, this condition will get fails. So it will terminate the while loop. In the cout statement, I am printing the current value of I. Let me run the code. So it prints the current value of I at every time of the loop. This is the flowchart of while loop. At first, we initialize the value of I to 0 and then the loop starts. At first, it checks the condition whether I is less than 5. So 0 is less than 5, the condition is true. So it goes like this, execute the statement and it will increment the value of I, and again it checks the condition. So now the current value of I is 1. So the condition is true and it will execute the statement and increment the value of I. When the value of I is equal to 4, the condition is true, execute the statement and it will increment the value of I. Now the current value of I is 5. So the condition is false. So it goes like this and it will terminate the loop. Do while loop is similar to while loop. The only difference is the statement will get executed, then the condition is checked. In the while loop, the condition is checked. If the condition is true, then only the statement get executed. So first it executes the statement, then it checks the condition. If it is true, it will go like this and it will execute the statement once again and checks the condition. If the condition is false, it will terminate the loop. So for at least one time, the statement will get executed. This is the syntax of do while loop. First, you include the keyword do. Inside this bracket, you define the code block. So here you define the condition after the while keyword. So first the code block will get executed, then it checks the condition. If the condition is true, again the code block will get executed. If the condition is false, it will terminate the loop and move to next part of the program. Let me program. I have defined the variable I equal to 0 first, then I include the keyword do. So it will do execute the code first and then it will check the condition. Inside the code block, using cout statement, I print the current value of I. I print the variable first. Using double quotes, I print the message current value. So I give the condition inside the parenthesis as I less than 5. And I end it with semicolon. If I not increment the value of I, the loop will run infinitely. So it will create an error. So it prints the current value of I 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me initialize the value of I to 10 first. So after executing this block, the condition will get false. So for the at least one time, this block will get executed. So it prints the current value of I as 10.